This is your Module 7 overview video. I hope you've had a good 2 weeks. I know some of you guys are finishing up some of the assignments for Module 6 and submitting your interpretation projects. So those are going to be due tonight at midnight if you're watching this video on Tuesday. So I'm going to be working from the website, and if you want to navigate to that, you're welcome to pause the video at any time, or if you need me to repeat myself, feel free to pause and rewind. But again, that course website is tinyurl.com/ccsdgifted2. And so here in Module 7, this is going to be due Tuesday, January 9th. And I am unsure if you guys start school back on the 4th or the 8th. I know we start classes on the 4th, so that might be the same for you. So this will sneak up on us a little bit. But I think the workload, especially over the break, is completely manageable. And I think you can really finish this in just a few days. So your assignment of reading is be working with the book, The Solving the Assessment Puzzle, pages 86 through 90, and then 91 through 209. And you're really just going to be skimming these sections. This is not like a reading textbook or anything. Feel free to gather ideas for the rubric part, because that's what your product and performance project is. You're creating a rubric. So feel free, if there are any ideas that are helpful there, you can grab them. Teachings tools, go ahead and read or skim through pages 103 to 110. So in Module 9, you're going to create or submit the draft of your product and performance project. The final product and performance project is going to be due the following week in Module 8. And then Module 9 is your final exam, and then Module 10 is our last in-session class for this course. So this one is really flown by as well. So for the draft of your product and performance project, you're going to want to make sure you read everything on the assignment resources page. And I'm going to go there in just a moment to navigate you through that. And then once you have completed the draft of your project, we're going to do the same thing that we did for the interpretation project in terms of partnering up and giving feedback. Some of you, I think, had a really good experience with that. Some of you had a little frustrating experience because perhaps your partner didn't make their link accessible to you, and that kind of put you behind, or I'm sure was frustrating. So please make sure that when you're sharing the link to your document, that your link can be viewable with anyone who accesses the link. So I've got a short link there to the Module 7 forum and that Google Plus community. And so here's where you'll be posting the link to your draft. And then the turnaround time for feedback is just a little shorter with this one because it's a much, much, much smaller project. And you'll see in just a moment when I go over it. But your peer review feedback is going to be due by Friday, January 12th. So the draft is due Tuesday. You've got 3 days just to log in, look over your partner's rubric and their narrative and objectives, and make any constructive feedback you have in terms of whether things are clear or unclear or really good or could use a little bit more explanation. And that feedback is due by Friday at midnight. And again, your participation giving that feedback by Friday at midnight is going to be a 5-point assignment. I'm not going to assign 5 points for if you give them late feedback, because that's not really fair to them, because your final draft is going to be just due the following Tuesday. So if you get your peer review back on Friday night, that should at least by at least Friday night, that should give you Saturday and Sunday and Monday and all day Tuesday to make any adjustments that you need. And so let's go ahead and navigate to the assignment resources page, where you're going to find all of the resources for this assignment. So under the assignment resources page, if you scroll down to product, it says performance assessment project. That's your product and performance project. That's what we're working on. There's an overview presentation, and you really have to read this one first, because this sets up the whole reason of well, what is this project even about? And so I'm going to navigate to just a few slides to give you an overview. But again, make sure you access this and read through it all. But essentially, if you recall our Georgia Gifted Eligibility Chart, there are, and most of the case study files, most of the kids that you reviewed in your case study files, they had documents, they had achievement score reports from a math test or a reading test. They had probably the TTCT for creativity, or that creativity part of the motivation scale. And then for motivation, they had that GES motivation scale, or what was it called? Oh, I forgot what the other one was called. CADES, or I don't know, something like that. Anyways, those are all scales and tests. Well, the other option that you see there in our eligibility chart is that the student in grades K through 12 can have superior product or superior performance with a score of 90 or higher on a scale of 1 to 100, as evaluated by a panel of 3 or more qualified evaluators. And so this is kind of like, these are your own classroom projects or classroom products or classroom performances that you're already doing in your classroom that might be able to perhaps be proof or evidence of creativity, or proof or evidence of motivation, or proof or evidence of achievement. I'm going to vote that probably most of your rubrics are more geared towards achievement in some of your content classes. And there might be some classes, some courses, creative writing probably has a lot of creativity. But you can still infuse creativity throughout some of your projects, as you'll learn in the next course, which is strategies and materials. So what we're going to be doing is essentially completing sort of half of this process would look like of these students who are going to score 90 or above based on a panel of 3 evaluators evaluating this product, or I'm just going to call it project, right? And so really what that's going to look like is that we're just going to create a rubric. You're going to create a rubric that is going to essentially, or could be used for this evaluation of this product. So say I have this big, I'm an English teacher, and there's this, I'm going to just go math because math is my field. So I have this big math project that I have my 10th grade students do, or my 7th grade students do, and it's really involved and it takes several weeks and it's kind of big, and I have this rubric that I basically assess this product with, right? So in order for that to be included for achievement or included for creativity on the whole eligibility process, that item can't just be scored by you, their teacher. It needs to be scored by a panel of 3 evaluators. And in order to get a panel of 3 evaluators together, they need to have a rubric that they can understand and assess the product with. And part of this presentation is going to talk about who are evaluators and who can be an evaluator. Evaluators can be, I'm trying to think if I see it right here, evaluators can be people who are here we go, who are, experts in the field. If I'm a 7th grade math teacher, I probably might want another 7th grade math teacher or an 8th grade math teacher, especially if it's like advanced content. To be an evaluator, you can have an expert in the community. So say my kid did something crazy with like some sort of, mathematical engineering, and that's not my field, but I know somebody or can contact somebody at a nearby business or a nearby university who could come and basically be an evaluator of this project. And so this presentation does go through that. And so part of this whole project is just creating what this rubric would be, right? So let me go ahead and navigate you. Again, you want to make sure that you read all of this presentation. And I'm going to end in these last 2 slides really quickly. There's going to be, I don't want you really creating a whole rubric or project or performance from scratch. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to use something that you're already doing in your class. Use a rubric that you already have. It might be perfect as it is, but you might need to adapt it. But you want to have something in your course that could be used as evidence for this gifted eligibility, so you don't have to give them the TTCT or you don't have to give them the evaluation scale. It's kind of proof in and of itself based on how the child performed, which I think some of us understand that some of these kids have, you can really see some of their strengths and talents when they actually get to do something versus, taking or having another teacher just assess them with a scale, right? Or with a rating scale or a checklist. So seeing their actual product and keeping that in their portfolio or like their big file folder might be really insightful in terms of determining how that child is going to be served throughout their gifted programming in middle school or high school. And this is especially great at the elementary school level. So that there's going to be 3 parts to this project. You're going to have just a short narrative, and this is just providing a description of the activity or the product or performance or whatever you're calling it that you are basically assigning to your students. So give me a little bit of background. Where is this in your curriculum? At what point in the year do you include this project? What have your students been learning to prepare for it? What do you expect? Something that gives me sort of context for it. And then you're going to list your objectives. And these are objectives that are associated with this activity or product or performance. And you're welcome to include the standards and objectives that you likely have to, but you might have additional objectives for this project that are sort of beyond the cut and paste ones that we often have to refer to for the state. And then you're going to create a rubric. And the thing about the rubric is that you want your rubric to be detailed so that you can use it when evaluating this work. Okay. And so because you're getting outside evaluators, it needs to be pretty clear. And so that's all we're doing for this project. I'm going to go ahead and navigate back to the assignment resources page. So that was the overview presentation. Read through that. I have a template for you to use that's going to include your rubric. And so when you click on template, you're going to be navigated to this document. Please make a copy of the document and rename it for yourself. The rubric I just put on the first page, that's for Jess and I to complete, but you can see that it's a 20-point project. It's kind of the last thing of this course other than the final exam, where you have your narrative, your objectives, and your rubric. And then here, you're going to want to title your product and performance project. So whatever you normally title it, please put your name, your background information, class, course, grade level, the unit or module of study. Here's your narrative, really 1 to 2 paragraphs. The more detail you give me, the better, especially if you want to talk about providing maybe what you might expect from some of your gifted students, or what you expect, how you would expect sort of the gifted behaviors to be manifested with this project. List your objectives, and then here's your rubric. So I gave you a few things here. Make sure your rubric totals to 100 points, because remember, we need that to be a score of 90 or more on a scale of 1 to 100. So for this, even if you don't normally have your rubric score to 100, for this project, adapt it so that it scores to 100 points. Make sure there's detailed descriptions. Make sure that you are acknowledging your area of eligibility. So is this a rubric that can be used for achievement? Is this product or performance something that can be used for achievement, that achievement category, the category of creativity, or the category of motivation? So please make sure that is typed in right here. This rubric may be used to qualify a student for, choose one of those 3 categories. All right, so that's it. It's really basic. Make your rubric however you want to make your rubric. If you wanted it as a table, if you want it as whatever, make sure that, again, that you've got some detailed descriptions into how points are going to be scored. So when you're done with that draft, you're going to navigate to your forum. You're going to post a link to your document, and you're going to make sure that that document is accessible to your partner. And then to find your partner, which you can navigate back to our assignment resources page, or the Module 7 page, sorry. Let me say something before we go back to partners. I do have, let's see, examples to guide you. I do have a secondary example of a rubric that's used for creativity, I think, in a 10th grade English class. Now, this is just the rubric. It's not the narrative and the objectives, because it wasn't really part of a project like this. But here is what I feel is a pretty decent, a pretty good rubric in terms of how an evaluator would score. So it's detailed enough that they could have, a good sense of how to score the rubric, or how to score the project. So there is an example there on that assignment resources page for you. I'm going to navigate back to the Module 7 page. I move my face, and to link you to your partners. So your partners are different for this next round. So if you want to click on secondary partners, you're going to see, or you can just zoom in here and take note of who your partner is, and that's who you're going to be peer reviewing. Remember, your peer review feedback is going to be due by Friday the 12th. And your final kind of make all of your adjustments to your narrative, your objectives, and your rubric are going to be due on the following Tuesday, the 16th, which will be Module 8. So I know that's a lot, or this is a long video, but again, let me say, I don't want you creating some new product, some new project, some new performance completely out of the blue. Think of something that you already do in your classroom, and see if the rubric it might not even need to be adjusted, but see if you can adjust it to be, maybe more detailed, or maybe to have a strand of creativity in there. I'm going to assume, again, that you probably already have a product or project that looks at achievement. So make sure, just going to say, like, make this easy on yourself, but also make it useful, so that this is something that you're doing, or you're going to do, you have done in the past, that if you needed something to qualify a student for, this could be evidence for qualifying for that eligibility component of achievement, creativity, or motivation. So I also know I probably repeated myself a lot in this video, so apologize for that. But that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I hope you all have a wonderful, restful holiday break, and I will check back in with you guys right around the 9th. I'll see you then.